Following some major breaking developments in the Vanderbilt rape trial, Vandenberg and Beatty, once convicted of raping a college student in a dorm room, are preparing to leave jail any minute now. The judge reinstated bond just an hour ago after a mistrial was declared. Our Chris Conti has been following this from the very beginning. Chris, this case truly has seen it all. This has got to be a shocking blow to the prosecution.
And Cuthbert, prosecutors pleaded with the judge here to consider that after the last 5 months in jail, both Vandenberg and Beatty are flight risks. The judge, though, essentially had no other choice. And so just before 10 o'clock this morning, both of their bonds were reinstated. It was a very brief hearing this morning. We heard very little about yesterday's sweeping motion. Instead, defense attorneys argue that because the guilty verdict was thrown out, Beatty and Vandenberg's original bonds needed to be reinstated. Both men will now be required to wear GPS tracking bracelets. The judge kept Beatty's bond at $350,000, but he increased Vandenberg's bond to $400,000 because he lives out of state and has very little ties to Nashville. Both men's passports also have to be handed over. Still, though, the state did their best to argue that neither of these men should be set free.
They know the consequences. Immediate bond revocation and penitentiary sentences. Submit that does increase the likelihood of flight. That knowledge that they now have, whether they had it before and didn't comprehend it.
Beatty's attorney expects the 21-year-old to be released from jail today. It could take longer for Vandenberg to get out of jail because he has to post that additional $50,000. The victim, who was the victim in this case originally, was not here today to learn that both of the men who were once convicted of raping her are now being set free. We are live at the courthouse downtown. Chris Conti, News Channel 5 HD.
Thanks, Chris. At this point, the judge has not set a new trial date. Of course, stay with News Channel 5 throughout the day, both on air and online. We will have much more on this morning's breaking developments later today on the news at 4, 5, and 6. Also happening right now, several business owners in Murfreesboro are working to clean up after getting hammered by last night's storms. Strong winds and heavy rains ripped off a portion of the Salvation Army's roof overnight and caused major water damage inside. The owner of the store says they will have to throw out nearly $50,000 worth of merchandise. Strong gusts are also to blame for the evacuation of dozens of motel guests at the Imperial Inn on West Broad Street. You see Sky 5 right here showing a chunk of the roof is completely ripped off and scattered all over the area. Many of the business owners say they didn't expect to see this type of damage left behind.
It was just scary at first because we thought it was like a tornado or something, but it wasn't like an actual tornado, but it was, something close to it where it did some major damages.
We've never dealt with anything like this. We've been open for 2.5 years, but this is the first sort of storm damage we've ever had here.
A furniture store on West Broad Street is also dealing with thousands of dollars in damage this morning. There are also plenty of downed trees scattered near the Old Fort Parkway and Main Street areas. Thankfully, though, nobody was hurt. Turning now to a very emotional day in South Carolina. A horse-drawn carriage will carry the body of State Senator Sen Pinckney to the state capitol there today as residents pay their respects and say goodbye to a beloved politician and much-loved pastor. Don Champion has more from Columbia, South Carolina.
Mourners lined up early outside South Carolina's capital to pay their final respects to State Senator Sen Pinckney. His body will lie in state inside the rotunda this afternoon for a public viewing.
What's going to go through your mind when you go through there?
I really don't know. I really don't know. I know it'll be a sad occasion.
Pinckney and 8 others were killed during Bible study last week at the historic Mother Emanuel Church in Charleston, allegedly by 21-year-old Dylan Roof. The accused gunman posed in photos with the Confederate flag.
The photo sparked a new push to remove the flag from the Capitol grounds.
Tuesday, South Carolina lawmakers voted to begin debating the issue. They also paid tribute to their late colleague.
I ask that in the memory of Mr. Pinckney, that we are generous in spirit, gracious in our conversation.
A man who loved everyone that he came in contact with.
President Obama will deliver the eulogy at Pinckney's funeral on Friday. Don Champion, CBS News, Columbia, South Carolina.
The new temporary pastor of the Emmanuel AME Church will be holding Bible study at the very location where the massacre took place tonight. He says even in the midst of tragedy, they still must press forward. In other news, we are learning more about what two escaped killers left behind in a hunting cabin about 20 miles from where they broke out of prison nearly 3 weeks ago. A pair of boots was among the items found where DNA was also discovered on some food. The hunting cabin sits on land leased by a group of correction officers. Investigators say prison employee Joyce Mitchell, who has been charged with helping the inmates escape, smuggled hacksaws and tools in a shipment of frozen hamburger meat. A suspended prison guard told police he did not know about that alleged contraband.